Hello friends, I'm here today to share with you a quick April wrap-up. I was able to read 14 books in the month of April, which is the most I've read so far this year, so things are looking up as far as the slump. To start off the month, I read Crushing on the Cop by Piper Rain, and also Engaged to the EMT by Piper Rain. These are in a series from her about like blue collar heroes. I forget what the series is called. I gave both of these 3 stars. They were okay. Not much substance to them, which I feel like is, I've read a few books by Piper Rain now, and that always seems to be the way that it goes. They're good, but they're just not anything spectacular amazing. But like I said, I gave both of these 3 stars. Next up was Radiance by Katie Robert. This is in her Dark Olympus series. This one is Apollo and Cassandra. Cassandra is Apollo's assistant and becomes his like fake date to a like murder mystery type party where they're trying to figure out, is somebody really going to get murdered while they're there? And I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed the murder mystery plot and the fake dating, and how they kind of woved in together. Obviously because the party is the reason that they are fake dating. But I really enjoyed how those were kind of like woven in together. So I gave this one 4 stars. After that was A Wicked Game by Kate Bateman. This is in her, what's it called? Ruthless Rivals series. This one is Harriet and Captain... His name is Captain Morgan. That just kind of like popped into my head. They knew each other as children, and before he went off to war, she made a bet with him that if he came back safely, he could get 3 kisses from her. Well, he does come back, but between him leaving and coming back, he is like shipwrecked and taken as a prisoner of war, thanks to this map that they found that was incorrect. And so now that he's back, he's trying to get those kisses from her, but obviously trying to find out who made that incorrect map that got him and his men shipwrecked. Her father is a map maker is all I'll say as far as that. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one as well. It had a lot of great banter, and the story about the maps kind of kept me intrigued enough when there was a little bit of a lull in the romance. But yeah, I gave this one 4 stars. After that, a much anticipated read for me that I have held off on for so long. I finally read Running Wild by K.A. Tucker. This is her spinoff from The Simple Wild about the pilot veterinarian Marie that is friends with Jonah in that book. And this is her romance with a sled dog racer named Tyler. And I thought this was super good, but I only ended up giving it 4 stars because she was still so hung up on Jonah. Still. And I felt like the point of even like the later Simple Wild books and this book was to try to make us realize that she wasn't as bad as she seemed, but she was still really hung up on him. Even in this one when he's married and she's saying she's moving on, I just didn't love how much she connected back to her having feelings for Jonah. So yeah, I gave this one 4 stars. My first 5-star read of the month was The Heiress Gets a Duke by Harper St. George. This one is August and Evan. August's family is American and they go to England. I actually listened to a podcast like a couple of months ago, maybe 2 months ago, about how the American heiresses were like sent to England to marry so that they would have the like respect of the English aristocracy, but the money of the American heiress. And that's actually what happens in this book. They're not really sent to find husbands, but they go there for a wedding of somebody who's in that situation. And then August's sister kind of finds herself in that situation with Evan, the Duke. But he and August have already met. They had a super cute meet cute. I really enjoyed how they met. But yeah, he kind of schemes a little bit in the fact that nearly everybody thinks that he's going to court her younger sister. And then he like surprises everybody and says her name instead, and she is very against that. She wants to work for the company, her family's company. But yeah, I really enjoyed this a lot. It had a lot of good banter. Again, they don't get along. She thinks that he's just out for money. And while he does need the money, he like shows her about, I forget the word, like all the people who work for his estate. He shows her all the farmers, and he introduces her and tells her like why they need the money so that they could like advance their farming systems, advance this, so that the people who work for him will have a better life, and it wasn't just for him. And I really enjoyed that. There was a lot, I feel like this one had a lot of like history in it, but that might just be because I had already heard parts of that in that podcast, so I don't know, but I really enjoyed this. I gave it 5 stars. Next up, I read If Only You by Chloe Leese. I don't have a copy of this one yet. I was able to find the audio from my library. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It's Ziggy and Sebastian, but I felt like, I don't know, like something about, I hate to say this because I love Chloe Leese, but something about the writing on this one just drove me nuts. There were time jumps and there were skips, and I felt like every time something happened, it would be like in a memory of one of the characters. So that's how I wrote it in my reading journal, is that I felt like it was a tell and not a show book, if that makes sense. But yeah, I gave this one 4 stars. This next one is going to be So Shiny, and I should probably just hold up my other version of it, but I'm not going to because this one is beautiful. I read Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I got the one with the sprayed edges. I gave this 5 stars. I absolutely loved this. As far as I could tell, the world building was set up very nicely. I understood what was going on. I understood their power structure. I understood the college that they were into. I understood all the levels of that. So this one is about Violet, who has trained her whole life to go into the scribe quadrant, where it's kind of more of a historian type position. But her mother, who is a war general, has decided that she is going into the Dragon Rider quadrant, and she's going to train to be a Dragon Rider because that's what their family does. Well, when she gets there and they have to do a test to see if they're strong enough to make it over into being a rider, or into the classes to be a rider, is I guess how you would say that. She finds out that a lot of people don't like her. A lot of people don't understand why she's there. They consider her weak because she does have chronic pain. There's also a group that's in the Rider Quadrant that is the children of people who are considered traitors to their country. And that's kind of like the punishment, is that the children are all conscripted into basically the army, the riders. One of them may or may not be the love interest, and he may or may not be super like intense, but very like protective of her, but also like he knew when she needed to like protect herself. And yeah, I just loved it. It's so good. Next is Powerless by Elsie Silver. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. This one is Jasper and Sloane, and it's a super cute friends to lovers, which is where the 4 stars came in. I'm just not a big friends to lovers person. But I really enjoyed Jasper and Sloane's, their like internal conflicts that they themselves solved, and they didn't try to push it off onto the other person. But they allowed the other person, after a while, that's part of the conflict, is after a while they allow the other person to be there for them and help them, but they don't like fix the other person. But yeah, like I said, I'm just not a big friends to lovers, so this one was a 4 star for me. After that, I read The Doctor and the Dungeon Master by Jiffy Kate. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. It's a teeny tiny little novella. I don't even remember their names. Griffin and Jenna. Griffin, at the start of the story, he runs into an ex-fiance that left him at the altar. And he's got a tattoo of her name on his chest, and he decides that it's time to get that taken off. So he goes to Jenna, on the recommendation of his friends, she's a dermatologist, to have the tattoo removed. And the whole thing is basically them waiting until he's not her patient. to hook up. That's basically it. That's all I felt. I don't believe that they were in love. It wasn't really that angsty of them having to wait. There wasn't enough time for that, so I gave it 3 stars. Probably my biggest shock of the month, which sounds bad, but I expected the story to be steamy, but I didn't expect much past that. But I gave 5 stars to Black Ties and White Lies by Kat Singleton. This one is Margot and Beck. At the beginning of the story, Beck shows up at her work and tells her that he needs an assistant and that he needs a fake fiance. And she agrees, so she moves from California to New York, where she's from. Or she went to college in New York, and she's kind of been wanting to go back, so she kind of takes this opportunity. And they fall in love through the fake dating, fake fiance situation. But yeah, this had a lot of steam. I kept seeing everybody on Instagram talking about the 5 chapters of steam, which were good, but there's a scene after that where they're in the office because she's his assistant while they're like working up to the fake fiance. But that office scene was so much better, even though it was shorter. That office scene was so much better than the 5 chapters, in my opinion. But yeah, this also had a lot of heart. Yeah, and like I said, 5 stars. I love this. I can't wait to read more from Kat Singleton. I also finally finished Lore Olympus Volume 3, which I started a couple of months ago. I gave this one 3 stars. There's just not enough romance in this for me. I thought that the point of it was Hades and Persephone, but there's a lot of build-up to that, and like, I don't know how many volumes it's supposed to be, but I'm kind of over it unless they're going to get to a point here pretty soon. So I may hold off on Volume 4. I think it comes out soon-ish, sometime this summer maybe. I may hold off on Volume 4 until I know how many there are going to be. Another surprise for me was The Beast by Jenica Snow. I ended up giving this one 4 stars, and it's a short little novella. It's a Beauty and the Beast where the Beast does not turn back into a human. He is a like animal creature, which I didn't know really how I felt about it. And I think when I picked it up, I was at Holidays with the Bells with Melissa, and I think that she was a little confused as to why I was picking it up too. But like, I figured a monster romance, Beauty and the Beast would be the most likely to intrigue me, and I was not wrong. But yeah, basically Belle's dad sells her to pay a gambling debt to the Beast, and she goes and she learns kind of the castle and the people who are there to help him. They are people, they're not like objects like they are in Beauty and the Beast. But I really loved his protectiveness. I love how he waited for her to agree to anything before it happened. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. I wish that it had been longer, like with most novellas. But in this one, normally I wish that they were longer so that I could understand why things happen. But in this one, I just wish that there was more of it. That's why I wish that it was longer. And finally, the last book of the month is Girls Before Earls by Anna Bennett. This is a book 1 in the Rogues to Lovers series. So this one is Hazel and Blade. Hazel owns a boarding school for young ladies, and Blade has become the guardian of his niece after his brother and sister-in-law pass away. And he's really not sure what to do with her. She's caused all kinds of trouble at her schools in London. So he decides to send her to the seaside to Hazel's school. But one of Hazel's stipulations is that he has to come visit. He can't just drop her off and leave. He's also trying to persuade this other woman to marry him, but when he sees Hazel, he kind of backs off a little bit. He does not actually break up with her because she will not allow that to happen. But yeah, I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I will say I started with the audio, and I could not take the audio because I was looking at this woman on the cover, but the audio sounded like an old lady. And so, like, there was just this, like, disconnect in my brain happening somewhere. So I had to stop listening to the audio, and I finished it with a physical book. So I don't know that I recommend the audiobook. But I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. There were a lot of hijinks, a lot of stuff like that, but a lot of heart also while he's kind of growing his relationship, not only with Hazel, but with his niece as well. So those are the books that I read in the month of April. Have you read any of these? Let me know down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see y'all next time. Bye!